So last week, I opened up a question box on Instagram and you guys asked me some questions regarding myself, building up an international career, global citizenship, and so on. And in this video, I'm gonna answer those questions. Hello guys, how are you all doing? Marcus here, and if you don't know me, on this channel I talk everything about global citizenship, building up an international career, and so on. I'm a Brazilian person who's immigrated to Germany and I strive to build up an international career, and now I recruit people abroad and in Germany for various positions. So I talk to you from three perspectives. The perspective of somebody who's immigrated himself and had to build up something himself. The perspective of a recruiter, also the perspective of a company. I try to bring this focus to the channel, and also the perspective of somebody who in Brazil, his home country, so to say, observed many expats in their process of adapting and also how the things worked out when they started to work there. So on this channel we talk about that. If this interests you, don't forget to subscribe, and if you like this video, don't forget to leave a like and follow me on other social media channels such as Instagram, LinkedIn, and so on. Let's start the video. I got some questions from you guys. I'm gonna be reading them out from my phone, and let's start. Laura asks, Tudo bem? Tudo bem, Laura. Then I get a question from Mari. Mari was my friend at school. She's still my friend. Brilliant friend. And she asks if I kept learning Mandarin after school. So I went to a very cool school where if you already knew some English, you could take lessons from different languages. As I was already taking German lessons, I started taking Chinese at this school. And it was 1 year learning many characters. I also did a lot of things myself at home to learn and to keep up, because in my school we had various students from various backgrounds. We had some students who had parents who came from China and spoke Cantonese as a mother tongue, and they decided to take Mandarin as an elective at school. And I had to keep up with those guys because they were in the same class as me, who had absolutely no background with Chinese, and I did quite a good job at the time. It was very fun, but I did not retain a lot of knowledge with Chinese. I just know enough Chinese to kind of impress somebody with a couple of phrases, and I started to learn Chinese again once I moved to Ingolstadt, the city where I live now. And in Ingolstadt, I did this course in Confucius Institute, but due to the pandemic, a lot of stress at work, so a lot of work to do and some personal projects. Also started an MBA and so on. I couldn't keep up with the learning Chinese project. I definitely want to do that in the future though, so let's see. Daniel R. Samp asks, how to get in an OEM graduate program? Advantages and disadvantages of the program. Okay, very interesting question. So I was in a graduate program myself. I was in a program that had the duration of 1 year, 12 months. And inside of this program, I got to know various departments, participated in many projects, and got to know some of the most amazing people I know today. So how to get into one graduate program. First of all, watch all of those videos that I'm doing about career, how to improve your application, how to prepare yourself for a job interview, how to differentiate yourself, and so on. They're general for pretty much every position, but they're pretty helpful. And you'll see that a lot of those tips, I've used them myself, and I got into one graduate program, so you can kind of see that they worked out for me. In addition to that, it is very important that you have your objectives clear and that you know why you want to go into a graduate program. So get that motivation out and really see why you're trying to do it, and try to look into the profile of people who've done it themselves. So you can easily do a search on LinkedIn and reach out to people who've been in a graduate program, or even just look at their profiles and see what they've studied, you can see the grades, you can see what languages they speak, you can see if they have international experience or not. You can see pretty much everything about their background, and this is pretty helpful for you to kind of develop some skills which you see are common for people who are in the programs. And that would be it in a nutshell. About advantages and disadvantages of the program. Wow, this is a video topic itself. There are so many points to talk about it, but the advantages strongly overload or overcome the disadvantages. So some of the advantages are you get to have various perspectives of the company. In my graduate program, it was that I could choose being in between 3 to 5 departments during the program. Since it was 1 year, I decided to be in 3 departments, 4 months each. So I was in HR, recruitment, which ended up being my target department. I was in finance, in the pricing department, and I was also in a strategy department, strategy for various countries. In the program, you also get to do some projects with other trainees, which are independent from the department where you're currently at. We got to do some projects such as building a program itself. It was also pretty cool, and one of the projects that I'm most proud of, because everything happened during the pandemic and we worked solely on Microsoft Teams and other digital platforms. We exchanged ourselves a lot. We built it from scratch. We did a market analysis, analysis of the current situation in the program, where we want to get, and so on and so forth. So pretty great and an amazing experience where I got to know also very cool people. So some of the advantages are those. Also the networking you get during the program, so you get to know people who are going to end up in various departments from the company where you're at, and this is also pretty valuable. You get to know, as I said, different perspectives. So in each and every department where I was in, I got to see the company from a very different angle. So the HR angle is very different than the finance one and the strategy one. And kind of putting all of those views together in your brain makes the teamwork afterwards whilst you're in the company much better. And those would be some of the advantages. Some of the disadvantages would be, since you're being only a couple of months in each department, you're kind of like starting over and over again. So you're starting in the company in this trainee program, you're 3 months in a department, and after 3 months you have to change. So usually it takes 2 to 3 months for you to get used to the tasks that you're doing and for you to get really deeply involved in everything that's going on and for you to kind of provide a good work. And then when you're finally capable of adding a lot of value, you have to change. And then you change again, and then you change again. So this would be one disadvantage, that you don't actually have the opportunity to get a very deep dive into every department. A very long program would have the disadvantage, though, that it would take you a lot of time for you to start in your target position at the end. So you kind of have to balance those two factors. Time in the program and time in each and every department, and the time for you to actually be out of the program and deliver your added value in a position where you're in a longer time. Another disadvantage that I would see in a graduate program is kind of related with this first point. So it is that you're not fully there in each and every one department, and you kind of demand a little bit of attention for you to learn the activities and for you to actually add some value. So you're in each and every station thinking, okay, how can I improve things here? How can I show my work, and how can I show that I'm actually important for this department right now, even if I'm staying only 3 or 4 months here. This was it, but this is also an advantage because you have this thing pushing you forward. Vasi Yesklenen asks, Favorite language to speak and to listen to. Okay, very hard question and very hard position because if you know me a little bit, you'd know that languages are one of my most important hobbies and one of the things that I love the most. And I'd say that I pretty much enjoy listening to every language. And it's kind of a day-to-day thing. So there are days in which I'm really into listening and speaking English. Some days I'm much more into German or French or Spanish and Portuguese. So there are many days where I'm just like, okay, I can't do it anymore. I just need to speak my mother language. And there are days where I'm like, oh, okay, I'm really into French today. Even though I don't speak a lot of French, I like to hear some French, listen to some audiobooks and so on. So what I love the most though is learning people from different backgrounds and letting them teach me something in their language. So in Finnish, there's this tongue twister that I love. I can't pronounce it because it consists solely of koko. And it's about firewood something something. So really cool. And yeah, that's basically it. Snowjäger asks, winter in Germany versus winter in Brazil. Personally, I think the winters in Curitiba are worse. So this guy had an exchange program in Curitiba, in my city, and we got to know each other there. And he pretty much lived in one of the coldest capitals of Brazil. So my city can be very, very cold in the winter. It can reach some minus degrees. It will usually be between 0 and 10 degrees Celsius. Sorry, Fahrenheit people, I don't know how to convert it by heart. It is pretty hard there because not all of our houses have insulation and we don't usually have radiators, which make winters pretty harsh because you have to be pretty well dressed to what concerns winter. So you have to have lots of jackets and blankets in your home. So you're freezing inside of your home. I can personally say that it's terrible. You don't want to get out of your very warm blankets when you wake up in the morning. My personal opinion is that winters here are harder for one reason. Not because of the cold. I think that it's tolerable and I actually like colder weather. The reason why I don't like the winter here very much is because of the light. I really miss the light. And in some months here, you only get a very short period of time where you have light, and usually I'm at work during those times, so I'm not outside. So when I get out of home, it's dark, and when I get back home, it's dark. Darian asks, did you know the German language before starting to work where you work now? Yes. So my story with the German language is a pretty special thing. I'm probably going to do a video only about that. But I started learning German in 2012, where I got a scholarship to study it at the Goethe Institute at my city. And since then, I've kind of obsessed with the German language, so I started hanging out with some German exchange students in my city, started watching some TV shows, learning it at the Goethe Institute, as I said, reading books, audiobooks, and so on. So it pretty much became a part of my life. And in the first internship that I've had in Brazil, it was at a German company, also with an international project that was going on there. So they had many expatriates who went to Brazil to kind of execute this project, and they really needed people to speak German, or people who spoke German to interact with those employees. I didn't speak perfect German at that time. I spoke okay German, and in this company where I stayed for 2 years, in Brazil internships are common up to 2 years, I got the opportunity to improve my language a lot. If you're planning to migrate or to work in another country, I can only highly recommend you to learn the language beforehand. It's gonna help you so much. Maybe it's not a decisive criteria for you to be hired or for you to start your life there, but it's just going to facilitate so much. Oliana asks, what do you miss the most in Brazil? Okay, so this question is quite simple. I miss friends and family quite a lot. And I try to stay in touch through phone calls. I am the weird guy who in the 21st century still calls people out of the blue. I try to exchange some messages and send photos, videos, and so on. And I think that this really helps keep in touch. But it is an obstacle, and it's kind of sad to see that some relationships, that the contact isn't just there anymore so much. So this is something that I really miss in Brazil. Another thing that I do really miss is the food and the climate. So even though I come from this very cold city, as I said, even in winter we have warmer days in my city. So I miss that quite a lot. Allison asks, how to choose the right country? Very good question. And I kind of wrote with Allison a little bit after that to understand what he meant, and he told me, okay, Marcus, now I already made my choice, but this topic is something that would really help me out back in the day, because I had to decide between some countries to study and to maybe work afterwards. So how did you make this choice? How can you make this choice? I'd say that the most important factor is to choose a country, if you want to live abroad, where you're identifying yourself with. If you already know a little bit of the culture, if you really like the culture, if you have friends, if you've already been there, you know, kind of like the vibe of the country you're going to. This is pretty decisive and the most important criteria, because liking to be where you are is one of the most important aspects for being successful. Be it your job, so if you like your job, you're probably going to be successful at it, being the country where you're at, because if you like the country where you're currently in, you're probably going to be successful there as well, making friends, making contacts, and so on. So, most important factor, and also you can look into many other things. So, how are the opportunities for people with your educational background, with your professional background? Another thing that I would look at are the opportunities. So how are the opportunities paid if you're looking into a job perspective? So are you getting more value if you're going to this country? And how do you measure this value? So if you go to the US, you have a higher chance of getting extremely high pays, but you don't have a social system behind you. One very good aspect of Europe is that regardless of your background, you're not really left behind. So you have a health system, which you don't necessarily have in every country. You have a good education. So in Germany, you can study for pretty much almost no money at all, and get your bachelor's degree, get your master's degree, even a doctorate in some other things, so a good pension system and so on. Maybe you take a look at that, and at the end, it's a personal decision. So you set up the criteria which are important for you, and you kind of look into those countries. And also the language. Don't forget the language. If you decide for a country, learn the language beforehand so that you can better integrate, visit the country before to see how you like it, and so on. Yeah, that was it for the questions today, guys. So I hope you liked it. If you liked this video, don't forget to leave a like, follow me on Instagram, subscribe to this channel for more, and I'll see you around.